Jurassic World Rebirth is just a few days away from official release. Scarlett Johansson in the leading role in this next iteration into the Jurassic Park, Jurassic World franchise, which certainly the last couple entries I thought were complete and utter shit. I think Jurassic World was fine. I think it was okay. And it certainly made a lot of money at the box office. But Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom and Dominion, I personally thought were massive steps down. I didn't think they were good movies, but those movies still made a lot of money. You can't deny that. You can't argue that when you look at those box office returns. Jurassic World Rebirth, on the other hand, we'll see what that does. It looks like, from early projections, what they think it's going to make at the box office might be a lot of anxiety surrounding the release of this movie based on the projections we're seeing for what this franchise consistently has done over time. But Scarlett Johansson, who is kind of taking over this kind of lead role for Chris Pratt, who extremely likable, a lot of big-time box office success for Chris Pratt. Scarlett Johansson stepping into that role, and she's talking a lot about her history in Hollywood, the roles that she used to get versus what she's getting now, and not for the first time is talking about how bad she felt about how sexualized she was early in her career, and she's happy that she's not taking some of those roles now. Scarlett Johansson recalls a lot of female roles catering to the male gaze early in her career. Yes, it's no doubt that Scarlett Johansson got a lot of roles where she played someone who is very attractive. And if you remember 10 or 15 years ago, when her career was at that point, she was very happy on the red carpet at all these places. She was happy with it. She was happy to flaunt that. She was happy to show that. And she was probably happy that she was getting a lot of those roles and making her tens of millions of dollars over her career. But over the last few years, as we see sometimes with actresses who get a ton of roles because they're really hot and talented as well, they look good on screen and they can perform well. When they start to get a little older, sometimes they look back and say, something really has to change. We have to stop sexualizing female actresses now that they're aging out of some of those roles. And now we have Scarlett Johansson doing that again. And I, for one, I think Scarlett Johansson's hot as fuck. She's like 40 now. I think she's still hot as fuck. But this is what she's saying. Scarlett Johansson says she was offered a lot of roles revolving around desirability and the male gaze as a young actress. That is less frequent. Was it less frequent for you, or is it less frequent in Hollywood, period? I'll just keep in mind, as she's talking about this, about all the strides that have been made when it comes to females getting cast in different roles in Hollywood. The film that won Best Picture was about a early 20s sex worker. That's what won Best Picture this year. And I think a lot of that had to do, the casting for that role probably had a lot to do with the way Mikey Madison looked. Just a guess. But let's get into it. Scarlett Johansson has opened up on how roles have changed for women in Hollywood. In a recent interview with the Times of London, Johansson said when she first entered the industry, the roles she was offered were usually centered around desirability and the goals and needs of her male counterparts. However, she thinks the Hollywood of today is ushering in a different time for young women. Well, one, if that's true, might not be the best step, considering the downtick we've seen in Hollywood, considering the struggles that Hollywood's having, considering the struggles the entertainment industry is having on streaming, in the theaters, everywhere. Maybe if that's one of the key changes, let's think about going back. The messaging is different, she says. There are many more role models. Women are visible in power positions. The opportunities I have to play women who don't have to just be one thing or another have increased. When I was younger, a lot of the roles I was offered or I went for had their ambitions or character arcs revolving around their own desirability or the male gaze or a male-centered story. That is less frequent, though. Something has shifted. Something has shifted. There's a lot more activists in Hollywood that are pushing out these stories that sometimes people do not want. And look, people would have loved to have a Black Widow movie way before we got one. But when we did get one, and they decided to make sure to cover you up as much as possible, and one thing doesn't necessarily affect the other. Maybe it was just the terrible fucking story that was told and the fact that it was a dog shit movie. But your Black Widow movie flopped. It did terribly for Disney. Certainly, there's really no argument about that. It was massively disappointing to everybody. But the idea that, well, it's only women who are hired because of their looks. It's only women who are hired for these roles and that roles or whatever. Scarlett Johansson, I will just remind you, you showed a little bit in some of these Avengers movies. You showed a little bit in some of the MCU. Every one of your male co-stars took off their shirt at one point. Why did they do that? Did they just do that for the story? Did they just do that for some empowerment thing? No, they did that because they know there's a percentage of the audience out there that'll be drawn in if one of the male heroes is taking their shirt off to show what's under there. Maybe Black Widow would have done better if you'd have taken yours off, just a guess. But she's coming out. This is not the first time. She's talked about this pretty extensively over the past several years. She's talked about this, about the male gaze in Hollywood and how she's glad that she doesn't get some of these roles anymore and these things need to change for women. It often is women who are very attractive. I still think Scarlett Johansson is very attractive. Okay. I think she's hot as fuck. And what happens all too often is the people that got these roles then want to pull the ladder up behind them because a lot of the women that are getting the roles now might be younger than them. That's just kind of the reality that's out there. And this is going to be an interesting example for Jurassic World Rebirth, because you're talking about how I don't have to be a sex object and, you know, the story's considered on me and I'm in power and stuff like that. And you're about to replace Chris Pratt as the lead in the Jurassic World franchise. And we're going to see how that goes for you. Look, I think there's a lot of people around the world that are going to go see a dinosaur movie, period, even if it's shit. Fallen Kingdom proved that. Dominion proved that. But what are the results going to be? If this is a significant decrease from the films that came before it, what are people going to say? Is your experiment worked out? Has your telling more stories with women in power just so we can put women, is that going to work? Is that going to be effective at the box office? Or is it just going to be empowering to you? Because at some point in time, regardless of how many women come out here and say it's empowering to get this story, it's empowering to get that story, if the stories aren't good or people don't like those stories that are being pushed out there, it's going to change back. It's going to change back. And we'll certainly see. A couple days over the weekend, we're going to see what Jurassic World Rebirth does at the box office. And if the changes that have gone on in Hollywood are positive for business, or if they're just positive for Scarlett Johansson.